Hello, we are live. If you can hear me, this promises to be an interesting episode. We're almost getting to the end of the series, and this is day 16. I'm so excited, and I've had to kind of get a place. I'm in between cities now. I'm at the lounge at the airport somewhere, and I just thought what is important to bring this because this is just part of the commitment. Remember one of the things we talk about in relationships. Even as we build this relationship, is about commitment, and I've committed to always deliver. Okay, to share my thoughts, be my perspective on this issue of redefining masculinity at this time. And today is pretty interesting. Yesterday, I got some feedback as to some of my responses. People said issues around sincerity or apologies should be sincere, but beyond the sincerity is that there also must be the empathetic feel towards the delivery, and that we shouldn't also take it for granted that once we say we're sorry and genuinely say we're sorry, is able to remedy the issues. Okay, well, so I thought to bring this as a feedback. But most importantly, it's important to note that there are a couple of things we're going to be talking about today, and all of these conversations. So if you're even joining us for the first time, the conversation started from the one where we started to talk about the husband and the husband. We moved on to telling stories as to what if you are not just the breadwinner and the woman is not bringing the bacon. We've talked about emotional intelligence, building strong teams. We've talked about the seven dimensions of man, beyond just being a partner, a provider, a priest, a patriarch, a provider, a procreator, a patriarch, and the list is endless. And you could add your own piece also. So today, we're going to be talking about the mistakes men make in relationships and how to avoid them. So the kind of thoughts I keep brewing on is as to the fact that the things that men are confronted with, particularly in these times, um, I like to throw a pose. I said, look, what do you think are the common relationship mistakes Nigerian men make? And how do you think these mistakes affect their relationships? And it's important to be able to answer, well, to share your thoughts about this. But just as Nigeria is, and like Africa, we have culture that forms and shapes our belief systems, and it also shapes our approaches to relationships. Particularly in Nigeria, there are traditional values, and these values often play a significant role in how men and women relate to one another. So you hear people that I'm from the south, some say I'm from the west, some say I'm from the north, some say I'm a Muslim. While many of these values are grounded in respect, honor, and duty, but there are also certain mistakes that Nigerian men are commonly or they commonly make a mistake in relationships, right? And these missteps, though often unintentional, can create distance, tension, misunderstanding, and many other things. You remember when we started to talk about financial infidelity? What are you hiding from your spouse? Because somehow we're also ego driven, we're not being vulnerable, and so there are certain things that we have also just embraced as individuals, particularly as men, that today we hope that we're able to explore some of these common mistakes, particularly Nigerian men make in relationships, and more importantly, how to avoid them. And so it could be communication issues, it could be issues around religion, it could be issues around cultural expectations, it could even be the pressure of masculinity. You are not a man. That thing has sent a lot of men to graves, early graves, right? It could be about understanding, it could be about addressing the challenges, that we face as men, or even in relationships, to be able to build and lead healthier and more fulfilling partnerships. Remember, it's not about competition, it's about a collaborative partnership. And the moment we understand that our relationships are nest with the objective of partnering together to achieve more under a common purpose, then and only then can we truly harness the unusual benefits and grace that comes from the two becoming one. Okay, so I like to start off with a story about Tunde and Ada. Tunde is from the southwest of Nigeria. Ada is from the southeast. deeply in love with each other, right? But over time, their relationship started to face challenges, starting with Tunde's mom. Like, and I was so liberal to the point that, and that Tunde was also raised with that understanding that, well, men are strong, they shouldn't condescend to issues. He probably would not even find himself going into the kitchen, right? So this somewhat affected the communication with Dada. He often kept his emotions bottled up, believing that our household responsibilities were solely for women, and he rarely expressed his affection. In fact, the wife would always say, "You are not romantic." Like, are you on that are you on that table? Okay, let me shake it a bit. So because somehow occasionally my wife also says you are not romantic. Well, some other times I think it's born out of emotional distances or when we have issues, and I just feel, look, just between locations, and somehow the network would probably also just be undulating. The issues were clear. It was not, expressing emotions, and this lingered on to the point where, um, based on the Nigerian culture, men are often raised to believe that showing emotion is a sign of weakness. Okay, and in fact, I had lived on this side of the world before, where I had to suppress my feelings. I avoided being vulnerable. Well, this might seem like a strength, but like I keep saying, emotional distance, emotional infidelity, all kinds of stuff, right? And partners feel disconnected because there's lack of openness and intimacy. So one of the things we ought to know as a common mistake is that not expressing your emotions, okay, creates distance and weakens emotional connections. It's about connections and not control. Remember those two C's, right? And it's not about competition, okay? It's about collaboration. But once we don't understand this as a partnership, then we begin to create distances, and these distances create emotional barriers and blockages. Right now, I would like to talk about how do you start to avoid this. Okay, you start by being open about your feelings. One of the things that you want to be able to do, uh, particularly with making mistakes, in this area is that you must share your emotions, your fears, your joys. Yeah, even with vulnerability to an extent, but not to your detriment. Okay, so and vulnerability does not mean you are weak. I don't know whoever came up with this that we cannot show our emotions. Okay, it just makes us stronger. And irrespective of whoever is showing emotions, and at what point in whatever side of our lives, we must just understand that this can also be used against us. That I'm vulnerable does not make me less of a man. Okay. The other mistake that people make is, around the traditional gender roles without flexibility. And I think mothers are somewhat guilty about this. Well, anyway, I didn't really have to go through this because for whatever it is, I was involved with household chores. Yes, I understand the role of the man as a provider, and the role of the woman is to handle the household duties and nurture the children. But I must tell you, this really was something that I had to find. Okay. So if we cannot say that, then we must come to terms with the fact that it's important that we create some form of balance. We must create balance at all times. Balance is critical, and you must embrace flexibility in your partnership. Just be flexible. And remember the times that we're in. We said that these times are highly dynamic, right? And you cannot be rigid. The days where people will be rigid, it's far gone. So you must understand how to be able to work as a team, okay, and create balance in relationship. Another thing, as per the mistakes people make in relationship, is lack of affection. Okay, so look, we are assuming that since you're a financial provider, well, that's sufficient. Well, look, most Nigerian men believe that showing love through actions like paying bills, buying a car, taking care of the material needs is sufficient. I dare say no. Partners often crave emotional, effective emotional affection. Words of love, physical touch, and verbal appreciation. I think today is World Breast Day, so please, as a married man, please help your wife. Help your wife. Because I understand that also has some psychological and medical benefits to the women. So emotional affection is beyond just financial provision in a relationship. It goes just beyond that. And so, how then do you show these emotions? Okay, compliment your partner. Send a word, honey, sweetheart, phenomenal, delectable woman. Express gratitude for whatever it is, whether after you eating your food at home or you're gone out of bed, whatever it is. Be physically affectionate, and these small gestures of love go a long way in maintaining emotional closeness. Now, one of the things we also realize as a mistake is that men don't like to communicate. Most people don't like to communicate, and communication is the heartbeat, in fact, the foundation of a healthy relationship. And we realize that most Nigerian men tend to avoid difficult conversations, or they fail to just simply communicate effectively with their partners. This leads to misunderstanding, assumptions, presumptions, unspoken resentment, unmet expectations, and several other things. And you just be asking yourself, why are we not prioritizing communication? Communication is like the blood in the system, right? So when we avoid communication, it leads to misunderstanding and emotional, fatigue and distance. What then must we do? Be open and honest. Okay, be willing to have difficult conversations. Okay, express your needs and listen to your partner's concerns without getting defensive. Just listen. Okay, now remember this c word about control. Look, stop being overly controlling. You are the man is a collaboration and not a competition. And in this wise, there must be compassion. There just must be a convivial environment where you must be able to take decisions collectively and decisively together, and not just dictate. It's about decisions and not dictations. Okay, do this, do that. I told you at the first bit of my relationship, I had those symptoms of wanting to have things my own way. Well, look, you can't always have your way, and I'm saying that it just makes room for you guys to always agree, to disagree, and it boils your social interaction, and this clearly is one of those things that somehow are seeping into religion, okay, and also not just religion, even culturally. So there are some religious traditions, or let me call it cultures, that would probably just say, look, the man is the head. You cannot compete with the man. So submit to the man and all of that. But I'm saying that let's understand that God did not create slaves. We are supposed to be partners, right? And what then must we do is that rather than control overtly, we must collaborate. Rather than get into competition, we must connect, and make decisions together, as partners. Valuing the input of your wife, trusting her judgment, because partnership is built on mutual trust, respect, and not dominance. Yes, you can dominate your the world, right? But not your woman. Okay. Now, another mistake that is often prevalent is that there's the neglect of emotional and mental support. I don't know how to explain this fully, but people, just men essentially, are driven by just providing financially or material support, but the relationship is 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 guarded by emotional and mental support. Okay, so men don't just offer a listening ear. You must encourage. Okay, you must help. You must, be there with those hormonal changes, emotional struggles, such that your partner will feel supported all the way. So, look, emotional support is essential for maintaining a strong, healthy relationship. So, be there for your partner emotionally, listen without judgment, offer comfort during tough times, and be attentive to their emotional and mental needs. This time, mental health is critical, and we just cannot jettison it. Anyway, so Tunde and Ada started to turn things around. Ada sat Tunde down, and they had to explain, talk about these things. I say, look, you must understand how I've been nurtured and nurtured over time, and that, well, I must now begin to unlearn those things. And somehow, this gave room to some form of emotional presence, and that led to partnership in their daily responsibilities and better communication. And this was a decision. So you must decide as a man, a redefined man in this age, to say, look, I want to share household tasks with you. I want to start to communicate more openly about my feelings. I want to be able to show affection, okay? And it's not just by talking about it, it's about doing. It's the doing that gets the job done. So as you do that incremental steps, okay, you'll find out that it just boils and increases and improves the level of intimacy and communication. So let's talk about how then do you avoid um, these common mistakes. Embrace emotional openness. You know, look, if you begin to embrace emotional openness to the extent that you practice openness in your relationship, instead of suppressing those emotions, you begin to share them with your partner. It's okay to express your vulnerability however it is, but somehow it just brings you guys closer, right? And emotional openness just strengthens connections. Look, I can't overemphasize the need to strengthen connections and deepen intimacy. Another thing, in avoiding, or how then can we avoid some of these common mistakes, is about sharing responsibility. I've talked about that extensively. Come up with ways with which you can share responsibilities. It shouldn't be Madame alone that is doing school runs. What else are you doing? How then can you guys work together? Sometimes you want to also even, come up with some special cuisine. Just show an interest, okay? Because true partnership is built truly on teamwork. Show affection regularly, improve your communication. Just be there. And look, guys, can we stop being control freaks? I mentioned that in the last two episodes, and I'm reiterating it again, that a relationship thrives when both partners feel equal. You guys are equal partners. This is a partnership. The two become one, not half. So it's like you immerse yourself in each other. So avoid being overly controlling. Try to take decisions together. And I can tell you, this collaboration will create harmony. And once there's peace, okay, there's purity, and purity leads to progress, and then control, will be out of it, right? But then there'll be a connection. Then another thing is we must be emotionally supportive. You just must be there. Your partner has some emotional needs. There are times when they're back from the office, things are just gone bad, or they missed the flight. Like today, I've had an ugly experience. Okay, at some point, I had to tell my wife, please, can you just allow me, just let me just not nurse this my pain of how I had missed my flight and I had to reschedule another one. I missed some appointments. I've been up since about 4:30 a.m. I had to move from a city to another city. It's just mad, right? But then I had to just be calm, and she offered some emotional support. So you also must be able to do the same, likewise, to your partner. So let's even start to round up and start to talk about the things that, and why this is crucial is because of the psychological benefits, and I'm going to be bringing on the psychological benefits as we saying that, look, when we avoid these common mistakes, we begin to see how we begin to nurture emotional intimacy and trust. So you must avoid, common relationship mistakes because it helps you build stronger connections, stronger emotional connections. Another thing is that it increases the relationship satisfaction. I'm sure if you listen to one or two of the series, I think I've mentioned and I described emotional the satisfaction and satisfaction and dissatisfaction. And I even started to talk about the emotional bank account. It was Stephen Covey that was saying, look, what are you drawing out of my account? Okay, because there's a limit to what you can draw. Okay, so what are you also depositing? So relationships where both partners share responsibilities is about deposits. Okay, efforts, time, compliments, gifts, just so many things, right? And if you're able to communicate effectively and offer emotional support, you'll find out that you start to have a higher level of relationship satisfaction. So a balanced partnership leads to a greater satisfaction and harmony. I think someone should be able to help us with that. That a balanced partnership, yes, a balanced partnership leads to a greater satisfaction and harmony in relationships. Another thing that happens is that it just helps you reduce conflict, right, and resentment, because once you completely avoid these mistakes, you just find out that it just boils and increases the or boosts your relationship to an unusual level. It deepens also respect and trust, and it just helps you to be able to just be free, okay, rather than be encapsulated or feel trapped. So look, I know we've said all of this, but there's a pressure, there's a traditional pressure. So remember, there was a time Tunde's mom came, the mother-in-law. There are a couple of things that by tradition, which she was nurtured by, okay, there were some things, some vibes that was given, right? And she wouldn't take it, right? So yes, we understand that men faces pressures, but you must be able to manage these relationships with your spouse, with every other stakeholder, whether your mother-in-law, your father-in-law, the in-laws, your family, because today's relationship require more than just fulfilling traditional roles. It's not just about being a man. It's about being a good partner, being flexible, being emotional, available at all times, or sufficiently as a sufficient number of time, right? And then you're willing to be able to share the responsibilities of your life that you guys have jointly decided to chase. I remember I talked about the draft horses that one can pull 4 tons, another one can pull 4 tons, but when they concert their energies together, they can pull 16 tons of weight. Also, even the Bible talks about one will chase 1,000 and two will put 10,000 to flight. Stephen Covey talked about 1 plus 1 is equals to 8, the power of synergy. So we're saying let's get rid of all these expectations to build a stronger, to be like a boss, get rid of the expectations to build a stronger, more balanced relationship. Let go of these rigid expectations. Just be there. Let it flow, and let it just flow. Okay. Anyway, every time I have to tell you about my own biblical perspective, and the common verse I refer to is always in Ephesians 5:28. Where husbands are called to love their wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. And this means that we're showing sacrificial love. It's unconditional. It's about emotional support. It's about partnership. It's about mutual respect. So a healthy relationship is not about dominance. It's not about control or rigid roles. It's about serving one another. It's about service, value offering, value addition, in love and in humility. And so once we embrace love, vulnerability, and collaboration and not competition or control, we begin to see how this affects our relationship, and then we begin to model Christ, okay, and then mutual respect. So my thoughts as I begin to wind down, I'm sorry if you've noticed some glitches. Like I told you, I'm in between cities, but I urge you all, let's build strong, healthy relationships. And yes, we will fulfill our traditional roles, but yes, it's about communication. It's about emotional support. It's about emotional intelligence. It's about social intelligence. And several other things. So let's avoid these common mistakes. Let's embrace a balanced approach, an open approach, and don't let us leave ourselves in a box. Okay, as Nigerian men or men in Africa, we can actually create partnerships that thrive and stand the test of time. So look, just in case you joined and you're just wondering what are these guys talking about, I'm saying there are a couple of mistakes people experience One, not expressing their emotions. The other thing is about assuming gender roles without flexibility. You must be flexible. Is about Another thing is the lack of affection and appreciation. Why would you not appreciate and applaud your boss or your spouse? Not prioritizing communication, being overly controlling, a control freak, and even neglecting your kind of support, whether emotional, mental, or even financial, as the case may be. I believe some insights have been garnered, and I hope that you probably join us tomorrow, day 17 in the series. And please subscribe, share with someone, and let's get this going. It promises to be interesting. I love you all. See you tomorrow. Bye.